What's up, real estate agents of Texas? We are back explaining some of these basic contract documents to you guys so that you can learn them a little bit faster than you would any other way. So my name is Jeremy Smith. I am with Living an Epic Life in Real Estate, and the goal of this channel is to support you in the growth of your business, to give you all the tools that you need, from contract form explanations to strategies to get more clients to mindset stuff. Everything here is geared to help you, from my experience, to grow your real estate business, thrive, and live an epic life in real estate. If you have any questions about this form later on down the road, or any forms in particular, give me a call. You can reach me at 682-990-5198. You can also email me at info@smithteamdfw.com. I am also a certified success coach. So if you have any questions on coaching and want to explore that, I can help you with that as well. But today's video, we're going to talk about the third-party financing addendum. I'm sure you've used it already. If not, you will absolutely be using it if you are in residential real estate and you're working with home buyers that are not paying cash. So we're going to go over this document with you, explain the ins and outs. This one's very quick. It's just a 2-pager. So we'll work our way through it. Really, most of the stuff that we're going to talk about is going to be on page number 2. I'm going to teach you some things that you not just need to know, but can use in your client's benefit, whether you're on the buy side or the sell side. So without any further ado, guys, let's jump right into the third-party financing addendum. All right, guys, as you can see, this is the third-party financing addendum TREC promulgated form dated 11/7/2022. This is the most updated form. You always need to check and make sure that the form you're using is the most updated, because these do change from time to time. So paragraph 1 here on this third-party financing addendum indicates the type of financing that your buyer is getting. Be sure to be accurate here. Don't just put anything in here. You may need to reach out to your buyer's lender and get some answers on the program that they're using or the terms of the loan that they plan to get. So let's start off with this first one, conventional. So if your buyer was going to be using a conventional loan, you would check this box here, right? Check box A. Also check line 1. They're getting a first mortgage. If they're getting 2 mortgages, then you would check both 1 and 2. But if they're only getting 1 mortgage, which is most common, you only need to check box number 1. Then you're going to put the amount of the loan in here. Now, a lot of agents will confuse this with the sales price. It's not the same, because your buyer is going to have a down payment. So whether that's 5%, 10%, 25%, whatever it is, that amount is not being financed. You're only going to put the amount being financed here. So for simplicity, let's say your client's buying a home that's worth $100,000, that's their contract price, and your buyer is putting down 25%, so $25,000. Well, what you would see here in this first section that you can fill out, this blank, would be $75,000. So a first mortgage loan in the principal amount of $75,000, including any finance PMI, due full in how many years? Is this a 15-year loan? Is it a 20-year loan? Is it a 30-year loan? Your buyer may or may not know that, but you may have to go get that information from the lender. Remember, be specific and be exact, because this is going to help your buyer down the road should things change and they need to get out of the deal because their loan situation changed. This is the resource they're going to use for that out. So with interest rate not to exceed whatever percentage your lender's quoting, right? And if there's a pre-approval letter that has an interest rate on it, it should match. So let's say not to exceed 6.5%. And the way that works for your buyer is if for some reason the rate jumps to a rate that they can no longer afford the payment, then they can say, hey, look, we said that we were gonna, be maxed out at 6.5%. This is actually at 7%. It doesn't work for us. We need to terminate the contract and get our earnest money back. So remember, as an agent, your job is to make sure that your clients are protected as much as you can. So inputting the data in this form correctly will actually do that for you. And then if it's let's just say it's a 30-year loan, right? So you're gonna put 30 years in this first section, and then with interest rate not to exceed, let's say 6.5%, we're gonna throw that in there for the first 30 years. meaning that this is not an adjustable mortgage. The rate is going to stay the same. It's going to stay at 6.5% for the life of the loan, whether it's a 10-year, 15-year, 20-year, or 30-year or more. And then buyer's loan estimate for the loan not to exceed, I usually put 1%. And that's how much the lender is going to be charging them for the loan, right? How much is the origination fee? And we want to say around 1% should be max there. Again, confirm this with the lender. Most agents don't do that. So if you want to stand above the crowd, the bar is set very low. Go out there, talk with the lender, figure out what numbers you need to put in here. That's what's going to protect your buyer the most. So there's a few other loan programs that are on here. There's Texas Veterans Loan. Actually, the Texas Veterans Loan, they actually dictate their interest rates. So you're definitely going to want to talk to them to figure out what their interest rate is. FHA insured loan, typically it's going to be section 203B as in Bravo. It could also be 203K. That's a rehab loan. That's a loan that is FHA program, and a buyer can get financing to buy the home and rehab the home to get it up to livable speed. So that's also an option. I've only seen one of them in all my career. Everything else has been 203B FHA insured loan. But guess what? Talk to the lender and make sure you're putting the right thing 100% of the time. And then same thing goes for FHA as it did for the conventional. You're only going to put the financing amount. So if it's $100,000 and they're putting $5,000 down, this blank is going to read $95,000. You're not putting in the sales price here. You're putting in the financing amount. Same thing with the interest rate and the terms of the loan. Be accurate, talk to the lender. I think I said it like 7 times already. So talking to the lender to get this information obviously is something that's important that you should be doing. VA loans. A lot of times VA loans, veterans go with 0 down. That's part of the benefit of the VA program. So in this situation, if they are going with 0 down, the sales price and the finance price would be the same. So if it's $100,000 and they're financing $100,000, it would be the same, unlike the FHA and the conventional loan. Then you have USDA guaranteed financing, cool program. It's for rural areas. It's also a 0 down program where they have the option. They can put more money down. Same with VA. They could put money down if they wanted to. But again, you got to talk to that lender to make sure that you're putting the right information on there. There's reverse mortgage. I've never dealt with that, so I really can't educate you on that. And then other financing typically doesn't exist, right? Maybe seller financing, but there's an addendum for that. So paragraph 2, this is important. Approval of financing. There's 2 different ways that the approval has to be made, you guys. 1 is buyer approval. 2 is property approval, and they are completely separate. One can be approved and one can be disapproved, and the deal could fall apart. So they are not the same. Let's talk about them and talk about the differences. Paragraph 2, approval of financing. So the approval for the financing described above will be deemed to have been obtained when buyer approval and property approval are obtained. Time is of the essence for this paragraph, and strict compliance with the time for performance is required. Not suggested or recommended, but required. So let's talk about buyer approval. What the heck does that mean? Well, if you read through this, what you'll learn is that buyer approval means the buyer being approved for the financing based off of their credit worthiness, their funds to close, all of the information that the lender needs to approve this buyer for the loan. It has nothing to do with the property. And on this page, if you check the box that's at the top right next to the word, or right under the word buyer, then you need to put a number of days in there. How many days does your buyer's lender need to vet their file after they get the purchase contract, send it through underwriting, and get full buyer approval? All lenders are different. Some will do all of the work up front before they even give you a letter for that buyer. Some will not. The latter is the better option, but you need to, again, talk to the lender, see how much time they need. One common number that has been going in there for years is 21 days. A lot of lenders say, hey, we need 21 days. When the market was super hot, that time frame went down. Just to be competitive, that had to go down, right? So you may see 7 days, but you have to understand what this paragraph does is it gives your buyer an out. So if for some reason your buyer were not to be approved for the loan, they can, if they're in the time frames prescribed in this paragraph, they can terminate the contract and get their earnest money back. But there's another option. So this contract is not subject to buyer obtaining buyer approval. If your buyer is like 100% solid and y'all are in competition and they really want that house, that may be the option. But again, talk to the lender. So this document, for you to fill it out, you've got to be having conversations with the lender. Y'all got to be on the same page. So let's talk about property approval. Remember, we said there's two different things, buyer approval and property approval. So property approval, that is the buyer's lender determining that the property satisfies all of their requirements and they can lend on the property. Some things that can cause a property not to receive property approval would be a low appraisal, would be lender required repairs. So those are common with FHA and VA loans, where the appraiser goes out there, sets a value on the home, looks through his checklist, and if he finds anything that is on that checklist, he's gonna note it, right? So some of the common things are exposed wood, right? Or safety hazards, or missing appliances, or broken things that are clearly broken. The appraiser may call those out and say, hey, the home is worth $100,000 only if these items are repaired. Those would be lender required repairs. We talked about those in the 1-to-4 contract. So if you didn't watch that video, go back and watch it so that you understand what those lender required repairs look like. But the property wouldn't, in this instance, wouldn't be approved by the lender until those repairs are satisfied. Now, if the appraisal comes in low, then it's not going to be approved for anything over the appraised value. So let's, again, $100,000 is the sales price, and it approves, the property appraises for $90,000. Well, the lender is gonna loan on that $90,000. So if your buyer has, 5% down, it's gonna be 5% of $90,000, but then the difference needs to be made up somewhere. So the buyer can actually bring that cash to closing. The seller can reduce the price by the 10 grand or whatever the difference is, or they can meet somewhere in the middle. Maybe they split it 50-50. Maybe the buyer comes up with an extra few $1,000s and the seller eats the rest. Million ways to solve that problem, but it's important to know that the appraisal is part of property approval. And then if you look at paragraph 4 here, FHA and VA require provision. This is a good one to know when you're working with VA and FHA clients. One of the key things in here is this blank where you have to put in the sales price in this blank. And what all this means is that if the house doesn't appraise for the value set forth in the contract, the purchase price, then the FHA or the VA buyer is not going to be required to continue with that purchase, and they're not going to be penalized by losing their earnest money should they decide to terminate the contract if a deal cannot be made. So it's important to know that there's also an appraisal addendum out there that I'll talk to you about at some point, and that can't be used with FHA and VA buyers. Now there's ways around that people got really creative during the last couple years when the market was extremely hot and VA and FHA weren't as competitive as cash and conventional, or people were waiving appraisals and all that on the conventional side. So we had to get really creative with the VA and FHA. But per this document and a subsequent amendatory clause that will come into play later on down when you're working through your contract and the lender sends that out for everybody to sign, they're not on the hook if the house doesn't appraise for the sales price. So then paragraph 5 says that buyer authorizes the lender to furnish the seller or buyer or the representative's information relating to the status of the approval for financing. So the lender can communicate and should be with the other side. Seller and buyer authorize the buyer's lender, title company, and escrow agent to disclose and furnish a copy of the closing disclosure and settlement statements to the parties' respective brokers and sales agents provided under broker information. So closing disclosures come towards the end. And what that is a document that shows what all the financials look like. What's the sales price? What's the payoff for the seller's mortgage if they have one? And then it lists all the fees for each side, and then how much money the buyer has to bring to the table to close, and how much money the seller is getting at closing from the proceeds of their sale. It lists the real estate commissions on there, title, if there's any credits given from the seller to the buyer, that will be on there as well. So be sure to review those things. Again, guys, my name is Jeremy Smith. This is Living an Epic Life in Real Estate. Subscribe to this channel, get more education. Don't stop learning. The only way for your business to continue to grow is for you to continue to learn and master every aspect of your craft. If there's ever anything I can do to serve and support you and help your business grow, reach out directly, info@smithteamdfw.com. Comment below. And if you're in DFW, hit me up. Let's go have coffee. You guys have a good one. Peace.